Welcome back to the Hoops Lounge. My name is Marc Griffin, aka Montreal Marc, on Twitter and Instagram. We have a very, very special show today. The story that everyone around the globe is talking about, Donald Sterling. And also we're going to be talking about this first week of the NBA playoffs, which has been absolutely spectacular otherwise, and this dark cloud suddenly arising right now. I cannot do this alone, so I'm joined by my partner in crime, co-founder of Hoops Lounge. His name is Phil Boileau. On Twitter, he's Sporting Phil. Phil, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm just keeping these clothes nice and fresh out the lip brush and wishing the Raptors a happy next game.
I can't believe you went there. We have a first-time guest on the show today. His name is Justin Rowan. He's with SB Nation as a writer. His website is fearthesword.com. He lives in a place called Peg City, and I don't know where that is. Justin, welcome to the lounge.
It's a tropical vacation, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Come on. I'm doing well today. Thanks for having me on.
So fellas, I think we should just dive right into this. It's time to take those warm-up shirts off, throw them off at half court, and talk about Donald Sterling. Phil, what were your first thoughts when you heard this alleged audio recording that came out on Saturday?
Wow, it was pretty heavy. Actually, when I heard about it, I had a whole group of friends there, some basketball fans, some not, and I kind of just played it for everyone just to get a reaction. And the group I was with, a mixed bag, all sorts of ethnicities, men, women, and it was just shocking. I mean, for so many reasons. I mean, Donald Sterling having racist remarks to me is a little less surprising just because he's had past instances, but for it to make, you know, TMZ and to get past the confines of his little inner circle and maybe his, you know, loved ones and such, it's big news just because there's one thing to have your own personal opinions on the sidelines where it doesn't really affect, but you're in the public eye, and this is not a good thing for the NBA, especially with the new commissioner going over and worried about the image and everything that David Stern's built. It's a tough one.
Justin, so immediately people look to Adam Silver, the rookie commissioner of the NBA. What were your thoughts on how he reacted to the situation?
Well, I thought it was pretty predictable how Adam Silver addressed it in the press conference. He's a former lawyer, so he was very careful with what he said. I thought he approached it the right way. He expressed his outrage for the recording and all that, how disgusting all of that was. But he didn't overreact, which I think if you try to already start to jump out ahead of the thing and start punishing people before the legal process has kind of played itself out, then you could have made the situation worse and gave maybe Donald Sterling an out, something that he could use against the NBA in order to say, okay, I shouldn't have to sell because you didn't follow these procedures. They're limited in what they can do, but I thought Silver handled it the right way.
Although I will say in the same breath, he did look mighty nervous. I know he's a rookie commissioner, but he was sweating. You can tell.
Oh.
And you know what? To your point, he did really well keeping to the program. But those reporters, if you listen to some of those questions, they're really egging him on, trying to make him trip up with those words.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, is part of why I gave him credit. He was giving a bit of the Don Cherry piano hands the entire time, which was pretty funny. Every time he'd look down at his script, whatever he had prepared, and then the hands would come up, he'd come up. But, yeah, you could tell he was certainly nervous. I'm sure he was just still excited about having his name on the ball. He wasn't expecting this right off the bat.
Phil, what were some of the, obviously people were reacting to this around the basketball globe and the globe in general. In Malaysia, people were asking Obama questions at press conferences, not related to politics, diving into this directly. But around the basketball globe specifically, what were some things that stood out to you, people speaking their mind about this?
Well, one of the things that stood out directly was how, while everyone didn't give him a pass on being a racist, the intent of the conversation and how it made its way to TMZ and how it made it so public, there's a big following that was kind of set up, and this idea was kind of perpetuated between a bunch of people I spoke to from all walks of life, all background, all ethnicities. And I'm not saying it's everyone who's saying this, but this kind of smelt like this girl knew she was on her way out and wanted a last cash grab. I mean, obviously doesn't excuse his words, but if you listen to the interview, it seems like she was really like, oh yeah, this, can you say this? Oh, you hate this, you hate this. And so to me, there was some wrongdoings all over the place. But I think Donald, as much as he admitted in all of those interviews that, you know, because of his culture, his upbringing and such, you know, it's just part of who he is, unfortunately, I think he generally does a good job hiding it. And to me, it brings up that question of, you know, everyone has their thoughts and such, and it doesn't justify it at all. But, you know, I think she also hurt the brand of basketball as much by bringing this into the light, where it almost should have been dealt with in a private matter.
Now you're saying bringing it into the light. I have to speak to this because Bill Simmons and a few other writers have been writing about this for a long time. He has a history, decades history of sexual aggression, racism, a lot of lawsuits, a lot of just kind of dirty laundry. Why is this just coming up now in the league, Justin?
Well, you know, that's a really good question, and like you pointed out there, it did feel like he was being led on there, but it was just how inexcusable and how just upfront the recording was that led to people, like, the outrage in that. Like, when it's the court proceedings, like, he's been involved in 2 housing lawsuits where both were settled out of court. There were massive settlements for it, but that was, I believe, it was discrimination suits that he wasn't renting to both African Americans and Latinos. But I mean, it was just so public right away. There was no middleman. It's just the raw recording. It's a figure like Magic Johnson, who is beloved around the league, that he was blasting, saying that why would you associate with him? It was just shocking, and I think because of that and how we could basically touch the recording, like, I think that was what kind of made this conversation be brought up to the forefront.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing, but is there any way that, because I've listened to it a few times, and, you know, he was saying how he doesn't want her associating with certain people in public, bringing them to there. Is there a chance that part of his frustration through that conversation came because, obviously, this isn't boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife. She's a mistress on the side. So, right. I think there was something tied up in there saying not only he has his obvious hang-ups, well, let's say it lightly, but he also just doesn't want her to be publicly associated with him, kind of thing, and maybe that fueled it, and then she just fed on that.
I mean, it's certainly possible, but I mean, at the same time, it didn't really seem like that's where it was coming from. Like, I see what you're saying, I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I believe there's a picture, the LA Clippers posted it, of a birthday cake that they gave to her for, I think it was her 21st birthday, and it was posted on the LA Clippers account, like a loyal fan or whatever. So, I mean, they're publicly exposing that relationship, and obviously not as the mistress and married man kind of that aspect of the relationship, but they were showing that she was at least involved in the organization. People know that she's around. So, I mean, there's some understanding of the outrage there, but at the same time, like, it was basically common knowledge for people in the organization.
I mean, this is looking like it can turn into a legal quagmire. I mean, there's a lot of people calling for, you know, him being suspended, him being thrown out of the league. LeBron James coming out. It's pretty much the face of the NBA saying, you know, there's no place for him in this league. People like Magic Johnson coming out against him. Even Michael Jordan, who's notorious for not speaking on controversy ever. You know, the guy who said Republicans buy sneakers too. Him even coming out today as the only majority black owner in the league. So, and as I said, Obama coming out. Do you think there is a legal means for getting Donald Sterling out of the league? Phil?
I think, well, yeah, so I mean, we heard Adam Silver speaking to that. I mean, there's a certain image. I mean, if you kind of put it to the idea of a McDonald's franchise, I mean, you can buy into the franchise and you can own it, but you have to keep a certain image. I mean, like you can't have one owner opening up a McDonald's, then opening up a strip club right next to it, right? So at the same time, there is an image you have to be able to sell. It has to be a family-friendly image of the NBA. It has to be something that all creeds and races can enjoy. I mean, if you think about it, how much did David Stern push towards the NBA in Europe, London, China, pushing the idea of international expansion? So if you look at where he was going with this, it's not a restrictive view on who the players should be. So obviously Donald is going against the views and the general vision of the parent company. So there very much is something there. Now, into how quickly he can make. Now, can you make someone buy? Can you make someone sell it? I think legally they can, and I think this is why there are so many people saying they should force them to do it right away. Because if this was a quasi argument, there'd be more people saying, "Oh, I wonder how they could do this. I wonder how I could do this." But if you have so many people in the know who are straight up saying, "Listen, we know this is something you can do. You have to do this for the sanctity of the game." So I think definitely this is something that the NBA can do. And you know what? Not only to the fans and the other teams and the players, but they owe it to the Clipper fans. I mean, what happens if they allow him to stay, and then after this year, Doc Rivers just like, I want to leave. Blake's like, I want to leave. Chris is like, I want to leave. And then all those faithful Clipper fans who've done nothing wrong, this team has grown, has expanded, has gotten better and better and better. And now, because this guy says this, they all have to suffer. I mean, if no one else, to the Clipper fans alone, the NBA owes them quick, decisive action.
And Justin, what do you do if you're a member of the Los Angeles Clippers right now, besides throwing your jersey on the floor?
I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do. I mean, you just can't. You have to do whatever you can to distance yourself from Donald Sterling as the owner, show that you're playing for Doc Rivers at that point, who you mentioned how you felt bad for Doc Rivers. I don't really feel as bad for Doc Rivers because Donald Sterling has a history, like we addressed earlier, of this type of behavior. He knew who he was going to be working for, and he negotiated his way into that organization. So, I mean, I feel bad for Doc Rivers. I'm not saying he's with Sterling in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, I don't feel as bad for him as I do the players. But they really just have to distance themselves from Sterling, say just keep the focus on their season, their drive to hopefully a championship in their eyes. I mean, they certainly were considered a contender going into the postseason, but I mean, I liked the demonstration of turning those warm-ups inside out. Distance yourself from the logo, just show that it's band of brothers playing for Doc Rivers and playing for the fans, because really the fans deserve more than what Donald Sterling's giving them, and they deserve their full effort.
Phil, I'm going to throw the last question to you. I mean, we're living in a very much 2014 is very much a corporate America, a PC world. We're not in the era of the 1960s and 70s where there's the Jim Browns and Muhammad Ali's who were the athletes who spoke their minds completely and freely, who were political animals as well. But Jeff Van Gundy came out and boldly said, this is a bigger issue than just fighting for a championship. This is about racism in America and racism in the world. Do you think, this was a situation where the Los Angeles Clippers said, you know what, this is a bigger issue. We should not have played basketball today?
I think, again, they owed it to the fans to play because the fans paid the ticket money. They showed up. They took time off work or whatever happens. As we all know with playoffs, this is what we do, right? I think this is something that the league has, for anyone to say that racism doesn't exist in the world is a fool. I mean, we're getting better, we're getting more open, but there still will be the Donald Sterlings of the world everywhere you go. Now, it should never be tolerated, obviously, but the thing that really gets me is I really want to see the fans and the Clippers use this to unite as they look like they have, even though they're struggling a bit right now. But the one thing I want to see is if you're going, if this is proven to be his voice, because this is the only thing they're debating right now, right? Like if it's truly him and this is what they mean. So if they prove it's him and it's sounding like it is, if they win, he can't be allowed to hoist that trophy. Because to me, that would be the biggest slap in the face to the whole country and the NBA. Because if they win and their fans get to celebrate, that's good for the NBA. If that happens and then Donald Sterling comes up, hey, I'm still here, boom, 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 holding it up, to me, that takes away everything.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. So we got to move on because this is, as I said at the beginning, this has put a dark cloud and has been absolutely the best first week of the NBA playoffs. I was born in 1977. I can't remember anything from the 80s or 90s or 2000s better than this. Bill Simmons and Magic Johnson mentioned that today too. So we got In the Post is our next segment where basically Phil and our guest Justin are going to go head-to-head battle. 6 questions thrown at each of them. I have a shot clock, 24 seconds here. They're going to have 24 seconds to each answer each question. A bunch of them are from you guys who sent them in via Facebook from our Facebook page. And several are from Phil, a few are from me. Let's just get into this. So this is all about the first week of the NBA playoffs. I am going to go to you, Justin, first because you are the guest. Question number 1, what is your favorite moment from the first week of the NBA playoffs?
Absolutely, it has to be Vince Carter hitting that shot. I don't know if you've seen that redemption video, but it is just a spitting image of that shot against Philadelphia. Maybe it was the fact that it was a little deeper, that's why I didn't go long. But I know it was just such a great moment to see him hit that shot, celebrate. I've gone over the Vince Carter hate. It was just nice to see him do well.
Good answer. Phil, best moment.
I'm actually going to say, considering they won last night, I'm going to go with you with Dallas, but I'm going to say the feel-good story for Dirk Nowitzki going 2-1 on the San Antonio Spurs, who are supposed to be the favorites of this whole thing. I mean, who knows if the Spurs can do it, but they're looking like between Monta Ellis and Dirk that they're going to give him a tough ride. It's a feel-good story for a team that's lost a lot of players and just a few years off the championship.
Surprised none of you mentioned the guy from the D-League from Houston who brought them back. You know, they lose that game, they're sucked out of the playoffs. That was an absolutely amazing three-pointer. Round 2. Phil, I'm going to throw this question from Harry T., who's from the Uncle Mike Show, a great show here in Montreal we've been on. Okay, Raptors versus Nets. If the Raptors win this series, they're down 2-1 right now. Do you consider that an upset?
Do I consider an upset right
if the Raptors win the series?
Right now, yes, because to me this whole series is about these young guys taking that next step and producing. In the next round, I think they have the talent to do it, but playoffs, veterans shine. So, unfortunately, I'm a big Raptors fan, but I would say yes, because I expect the veterans to close it out.
Justin, is it a Raptors upset?
You know what? I'll say it would be an upset. I definitely do think that it was a matchup nightmare. Brooklyn, I mean, they suffered injuries all season. This was a better team than their record indicated, which has been the case in both the Western and Eastern Conference. You see a lot of those lower seeds that were just hampered with injuries. But I just think that, yeah, it would be an upset because Brooklyn is a matchup nightmare and they're more experienced.
All right, round 3. Justin, I'll throw this one to you. Does Kendrick Perkins exist just to play against the Grizzlies?
No, I don't think he exists just to play against the Grizzlies. I mean, there's a lot of big teams in the Western Conference. You got Thiago Splitter on the Spurs. You got to put a big body on him. There's a lot of big bodies out there, and you know what? He sets picks. He plays a role. He plays defense, and he's showing a little bit of touch around the basket. As long as he stays there, he's okay.
Phil, Kendrick Perkins.
I think you just made a Scott Brooks fan, my friend, because I don't understand how this guy gets minutes. First of all, Steven Adams is a better player, I believe, overall. Kendrick Perkins, every game he'll get one of those post offensive foul, oh, I didn't know what I was doing fouls. He can't shoot, and yes, he plays defense, but really, like against Thiago Splitter, you can put Perry Jones on Thiago Splitter. I don't know. I think he's overpaid, overrated.
All right, Phil, I'm throwing this one to you. Question number 4. This.
How do we just get?
Oh,
Marc just freeze there.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Marc. He'll come back. Oh, poor. Yeah. Well, we can continue the Kendrick Perkins bit there until Marc comes back.
Steven Adams is a better player. I just understand like the plain veterans. I was just addressing that. I don't think he's useful just against the Grizzlies, but I would give him more than.
I'm going to throw this back to you. I'm going to throw this back to you. Sorry, a little bit of audio problems on my side. I'm going to throw this back to you. Justin. Does bench use change in the playoffs?
Pardon me?
Does the use of the bench change during the playoffs?
Houston, did you say? Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
My audio must be bad. Sorry, does the use of the bench by any team change during the playoffs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to shorten the rotation a little bit. You lean on your veterans. You lean on the guys that have playoff experience. If you have that, I mean, in Toronto, it's clear that Dwayne Casey's going to an 8-man rotation. You got to keep it short. You got to keep it tight. You got to find something that works, and guys that kind of just plug in and fit well. You can't be experimenting with players in the playoffs.
Phil, did you respond to that one? My audio went for a sec.
No, I didn't, but I can respond to it now.
Go for it.
So basically, I think the use of the bench in the playoffs is paramount, and we're seeing this very much with the Indiana Pacers. I think it's a matchup issue when we're looking at every play. We looked at Kendrick Perkins; he should just be playing against Memphis. We looked at Indiana; they should be benching Roy Hibbert for this series. I think the bench and scores. They make those chess matches work because of a 7-game series, it's just adjustment.
All right, question number 5. Justin, I'll throw this to you. If the Pacers lose and they're kicked out of the playoffs, does Hibbert stay?
I think they might keep him because his value would be so low that, I mean, you might not be getting a return for the upside. I think Lance Stevenson would be gone for sure because there's just too many volatile personalities in that locker room. But Hibbert, I think they shop them, but unless they get their socks blown off, I can't see them moving him.
Phil, Bynum effect, is Hibbert staying?
I think they have a real decision to make. Are they a half-court team or a full-court team? If you're going to play around Hibbert, you have to play around a half-court team that shoots threes and plays defense. If you look at their backcourt rotation, it's a run and gun. Their front court is a half-court. I think it's an identity crisis there in Indiana. So I think it's either Lance, who's that run and gun, or Hibbert, who has to go. So I'm going to agree with you in part there, Justin. And that was too quick. And Marc's frozen.
Yeah, it was either too quick or Marc froze.
We'll get there. I don't know. I think the Pacers at the end of the day are just going to... I don't know. Like I think they try to trade Roy Hibbert for pieces just because I think Lance Stevenson and Paul George have that upside, and I really don't like George Hill on that team. I mean,
I don't either.
The ball handling to me has to upgrade. They really need a point guard.
Yeah,
and
totally agree. I think Stevenson's the man out no matter what. Yeah, I mean he's the free agent there and everything, but I could definitely see them shopping Hibbert. That's just a mess of a situation, though. Like, it was so many like volatile, chip-on-the-shoulder players that were brought in by Larry Bird, and then you bring in Bynum and Turner, and it just was like that was just too much, and everything blew up. I mean, as a Cavs fan, I blame Bynum on everything. So.
I like your style, man. So the final question of In the Post, I'm going to throw this to you, Phil. First, was LeBron James working on his Mount Rushmore when he looked at Michael Jordan before that dunk?
I think he was just I think it was just a physical series, and he's just like, whatever you guys are doing doesn't work. I think his play speaks to his Mount Rushmore. I think his confidence is an all-time high. The fact that he was able to speak out to the Sterling thing, not holding back, the way he's producing. I think it was just a statement saying, I am the best player in the league, and whatever you guys do, it's over.
How was that dunk, Justin?
Well, you know what? There's actually pictures out there. They're analyzing it like JFK on whether or not he was actually looking at Michael Jordan. But you know what? I think it was just him staring down both Jordan and the Bobcats saying, this is over. I'm putting my foot down. This series, like, you guys gave us a tough run, but this is over. I'm better than you. I'm the best player in the world. So.
And you're still the Bobcats.
Whatever it was, it was magnificent. And there was one last question I wanted to answer myself. This was from Matt H., who I grew up with. He said, I heard that Sean Kemp used to be able to grab the top of the backboard. Is this true? And so this is my response to that. So Sean Kemp is, about 6'11", and he has one of the best wingspans in the league. If you remember that dunk he had in the All-Star game where he flipped it back. And I do know this one story of his from when he was in high school. He grew up in Indiana, Gary, Indiana, where Michael Jackson grew up. He once, on a dunk in high school, he hit his head on the rim and had to get stitches at the hospital. So if you take that in mind and his wingspan, there's absolutely no reason why he couldn't be able to grab the top of the rim, top of the backboard. And also, if you're looking for high flyers, check out the movie Rebound about a guy named Earl the Goat Manigault, who was a 1960s, 70s New York high school playground legend. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played against him. And one of the things he was famous for, at 6'2", he could grab a quarter off the top of the backboard. So look for the movie Rebound. In wrapping up, guys, I wanted to mention one thing that's been clearly missing from the NBA playoffs, and that's Craig Sager and those crazy suits on the sidelines. He's battling leukemia right now. It's just not the same without him out there, and hopefully he gets well soon. On my end, coming up this week, we have a Naismith moment. We're going to try to do it later in the week, not have it during our show, but have a separate piece later in the week, maybe Thursday, Friday. So look out for that on hoopslounge.com. Phil, what do you have coming up this week?
I want to start on my coming up with also saying R.I.P. to Mr. Michael Heisley, former owner of the Grizzlies. I have a little T-shirt up here, own the team. He, for better or for worse, was known as the owner who took them away from Vancouver to Memphis, but at the same time did produce a very good culture there in Memphis, and it is one of the bigger success stories in the NBA. Myself, obviously, my Off the Wires every Wednesday, so I start adding a little bit of music and content, so get your NBA info there. And as always, we'll be looking forward to lots of playoff action, so I'll be tweeting and putting little reports, and I'll be I have some stuff in the works with Mr. Mike Grumberg coming up, so you guys can look forward to that. Good crosstalk, rant talk, so lots more coming up on hoopslounge.com.
And Justin, as I said at the top, your website is fearthesword.com. Do you have anything else coming up?
Right now, I'm a writer there, and our editor just posted something today on George Karl possibly taking a president job with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We got a lot of stuff coming up with draft coverage. There's obviously going to be a lot of shakeups and stuff there, so we'll have a busy off season, that's for sure. And
if you want to continue the conversation with us, use the hashtag, if you're on Twitter or Facebook, use the hashtag hoopslounge.com. We're always there. Our man Moda's there too. He's traveling all over Europe right now. He really is a globetrotter. He's just all over the place, and he'll be back probably on next week's show. And you can we'll put Justin's Twitter handle up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/hoopslounge. Twitter Hoops Lounge. You can email us, Marc at Hoops Lounge, Phil at Hoops Lounge. Everything's on our website, hoopslounge.com. It's the best time of year. Talk Donald Sterling with us, talk NBA playoffs, talk to Justin, and we're all about the community. We're all about being interactive. And like I said, dark cloud, but the playoffs continue, and this will be an interesting thing as the plot thickens with the Donald Sterling Saga. Anyways, I want to thank you guys both for being on the show today, and I wanted to say, everyone, come back soon. We'll see you soon on the lounge.
All right. Thanks, guys.